If someone were to ask you what color Alice's dress is, you'd probably say blue, right? And while that's by no means wrong, her dress color was actually never defined. And so over the years, artists have interpreted it as literally every color possible. As I've seen tons of articles over the years debating what is the original color. This is the entire history of Alice's dress. And what color is it? Really? The last video ended off about 1893, so initially I was going to continue finishing the 1800s, get into the 1900s as well. However, as I kept researching this video, I kept realizing how many things I forgot. So we're actually going to play a little game of catch-up. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyways, back to the 1870s. Throughout the 1870s, Macmillan created a set of 36 magic lantern slides. The magic lantern was a sort of precursor to the modern projector. It used images or paintings on a transparent glass backing, which, when backlit, would project said images onto the wall. They were hugely popular from the mid-1600s all the way through the 1800s, but only fully went obsolete around the 40s and 50s due to the invention of the slide projector. The Alice slides were heavily inspired by the original John Tenniel illustrations and feature Alice in a pink dress with light blue accents. In 1876, the Royal Polytechnic Institution also created 14 slides of Alice, which feature her in an extremely similar pink dress. However, the key distinguisher between the two is that this one has a much more unique and romantic take on her surrounding environment. It's also worth noting that the ones that are currently on screen were cataloged as belonging to the Macmillan one. However, I think that has to be a mistake. They look so much like they belong with the Polytechnic Institution version. In 1880, we see the publication of Alice and Other Fairy Plays for Children by Kate Friligrath Croker. She's definitely still recognizable as Alice, but her hair is pulled back and she has a slightly longer dress than we're used to. In 1882, we essentially get the Looking Glass version of the same book, but this time it was illustrated by someone I just found identified as Elto. Here, Alice definitely has a more unique look. She has a drop waist and some cute little decorations on her sleeves. In 1884, we get the publication of Alice's Wonderland Birthday Book, compiled from both Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by E. Stanley Lees, with permission from Lewis Carroll, of course. Here, Alice almost looks like she has pleats in her skirt and a coat over top, but you can't really see that much of her. She's obscured by a book, and you don't really get to see her much inside as well. Around 1888, York and Son produced 42 new magic lantern slides of Alice. They were also heavily based on the original illustrations. However, they produced each slide in at least 2 different color variations, as well as an uncolored version. And even stranger, even though I couldn't find more than 2 versions of any specific slide, I found several different variations in her outfits. I also have one other lantern slide set to cover. It doesn't have a date, so it could be from before or after this, but around here, so. It was by H.W. Taunton Co. and also very heavily inspired by the original illustration. Her dress goes through a few variations in this version too, but it stays around this similar tealish blue color. Last time we discussed the first professional stage production of Alice. However, Seville Clark's Alice was extremely well received and ended up getting reruns several more times, featuring several different Alices in several different outfits. In 1888 and 89, Alice was played by Isa Bowman, who is a close personal friend of Lewis Carroll himself. In 1890, it was played by Muriel Newton. In 1898 and 99, it was played by Rose Hersey. And in later 1899, as well as 1900, it was played by Volley Volley. There were also a handful of just covers around this time that featured her in a new outfit. I'm not gonna go through them all right now, however, I do want to bring up this one copy from People's Edition. Along with it just being a really popular cover that's been reused several times, it's also potentially the first time Alice both had a colored apron and wore orange. This was followed up by another orange aproned Alice in 1898, done by Bertram Grosvenor Goodhue for Emily Prime Delafield's new play script of Alice. We have one more orange Alice to get to, but first let's go back to 1894. In 94, Lion Coffee, owned by the Wolfson Spice Company, made 2 Alice trade cards. One features her in a white nightgown looking dress, and the other features her in pink. Now up to 1899, we have one more final book to cover. And that is, of course, the legendary illustrated edition done by Blanche McManus. She's back into that fiery orange color, however this time it's on the dress instead of the apron, and the apron is black for the first time. And at that, we are done. Until I have to do part 3.